Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov Chess channel and welcome to a beautiful game that I think you should add into your opening prep in the Spanish opening. Today we see an amazing game in AI chess between Minik and Stockfish 16 in a very crazy Anderssen variation of the Spanish opening. So today we see the fish again playing with the black pieces. I think these are the games that we're looking for because many of us of course have problems what to do with the black pieces. So again here an amazing, really perfect game played by Stockfish with the black pieces in the Ruy Lopez theory. So let's dive now into the game with the white pieces. Here Minik opened with the move e4. We have e5 by the fish, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5 leads now into the Spanish opening. We have a6, the Morphy Defense, bishop to a4, and now knight to f6 hitting the pawn on e4. And there are basically now two choices. You can go into open stuff after with kingside castling, or you can go now into the solid position with move d3, which becomes now the so-called Anderssen variation. We have now b5 by the fish, bishop to b3, and now bishop to c5, c3 by Minik, preparing now the move d4, d6 fixing the structure in the center of the board, and now bishop to g5. We have h6, bishop drops back to h4, and now a very important move, bishop to a7. This move has not been played so often in top GM level. In international master level and also FIDE master level it is quite popular. This bishop to a7 idea is really brilliant because in some lines you could maybe be challenged with move a4, and then there are certain tensions on the a file. So basically this move bishop to a7 stays of course on this diagonal, but it cuts off the activity of the rook on a1 against the rook on a8. So if the a file clears in some lines, then you could be vulnerable to this attack by the rook on a1. So very interesting line here that Stockfish is showing us. We have now the move a4. You see immediately here by Minik we have now g5, bishop to g3, and now comes a theoretical novelty here by Stockfish, a move that we have not seen so far in chess history. In chess history, bishop to d7 has been played with also the opportunity to connect the bishop to the pawn on b5. But Stockfish is of course a more progressive, a more aggressive engine, plays now the move b4, expands on the queen side. We have now a5 by Minik, simply occupying now the here the queen side, and this pawn is supported, so it's a little bit unpleasant now to handle this pawn on a5. We have castling by the fish, kingside castling also by Minik, and now rook to b8, putting more pressure here also on the b file. Now the bishop on b3 is a little bit exposed. If something clears of course on the b file, there are maybe some tactics. The queen is a little bit of course overloaded to the defense of the bishop on b3. We have now knight from b to d2 here by Minik. We have bishop to e6. Interesting choice by the Stockfish, because if you play now bishop to e6 and then after f takes e6, then I think black would continue with queen to e8, knight to h5, knight to f4. This could be a beautiful maneuver for black to cement a position simply around this weak square on f5, and then afterwards when you do it, maybe king to h8 to rook to g8, pushing the pawn further here, maybe even trying a kingside flank attack. So that's why Minik simply retreated here to c2. Stockfish continues with king to h8. Minik is again playing bishop to b3, and now after bishop takes b3, Stockfish says, okay, you had your chance, you had the opportunity to maybe do something here, trade off simplifying the game by trading off the light square bishop, but now Minik has to take it. Now after knight to b3, again we have the same problem, I would say. Again the queen is a little bit overloaded to the defense of the knight on b3, and look how Stockfish is punishing this tiny little disadvantage, I would say, in white's position, which is really crazy. It's not something that's spectacular that Stockfish gained here. It's a simple little overload here. The queen, as I said, has to so far defend this knight, and if you move the knight of course, then there is maybe a possibility for Stockfish to get a rook on the second rank to maybe occupy even the b file. Even if you move the knight and even if you protect everything, you always lose the tempo. So I think Stockfish will show here really a beautiful and spectacular way to punish this tiny little inaccuracy. We have now rook to e8 by the fish so far. We have rook to c1 by Minik, king to g7, improving now the position of the king. We have rook to e1, now b takes c3, and after b takes c3, again notice that the queen has to now defend the knight on b3. What should white do? What should black do? Pardon me. If you play here knight to h5, could be possible immediately. Here, for instance, knight to e5 is not working because after d takes e5, you take out this one, but then also this one is hanging. So knight to h5 is also one good idea here for black. But Stockfish plays, I think, a more solid plan. Plays now queen to d7. Queen to d7 is of course supporting the g4 square, and what the fish is trying to do now is somehow to launch further the attack on the king side, especially with the move g4. So that's why Minik stops it for white plays now the move h3, but Stockfish plays now g4 anyway. We have knight to h4. Now when you have pushed of course the pawn to g4, now you have left the weakness on g5, but also here the weakness on f5. So Minik is now trying to punish here this aggressive play by Stockfish. Stockfish continues with g takes h3, and again, what should white do? Now comes the real dirty part here by the fish. Notice, as I said, how the queen is stuck to the defense of the knight on b3. For instance, if you continue with knight to f5 here, seems tempting, but this wasn't played in the game. I really searched for an opportunity now for white to defend this position. Knight to f5 for my bad play seemed like a logical idea, seemed like a perfect move here, but actually it's not working. Look at this. You simply escape king to h7 after something like g takes h3. There is now this problem. Knight to e7 would simply put more pressure against this knight, and then after knight to e7, you don't have to even pick up the knight. You simply play queen takes h3. You sacrifice the knight temporarily, because after knight to f5, of course, white is trying to retreat. Now you play stunning knight to h5, and this is now the action. Knight takes g3, knight takes g3, and queen to g3 is the threat, because the bishop is here in this diagonal. You couldn't actually take here with the pawn. For instance, you're trying, I don't know, knight to d2, as I said. That's the issue. If you try to get a new defender into the game, then you get this one. Knight takes g3, and now after queen to g3, I think the position is collapsing. And that's actually the problem here. After knight to h5, you could maybe try to get the queen finally into the game, but this is not working, as I said, because the queen was overloaded simply here to the defense of the knight on b3. Instead of knight to f5 or maybe queen to f3, after here knight to f5 and knight to h5, instead of queen to f3 and maybe here knight to d2, what you could play is somehow maybe lock this diagonal for the dark square bishop. Seems also tempting, but again, Stockfish is saying here black should be much better, because after e takes d4 c4, you should block out of course the dark square bishop, but the dark square bishop will eventually get into the game. We attack here the g file, the bishop is coming, we simply go with bishop to b4. Maybe you're trying somehow to prevent this bishop to come to d2 and then maybe to be included into the attack, but then simply rook to g5. Look at this, queen to h1. You can keep the attacking flow. f3, you can even, I don't know, play queen to f4 to put more pressure on the g file. Even if something like this happens, you have this one. Look at this, takes, and I think again white is simply strategically lost. This pawn is weak, this pawn is weak. This is a solid structure, this is a passer. So in my opinion, a good game here for black. So see, after move g takes h3 and here knight to f5 is not working because of king to h7 and then knight to e7. Again, you would have problems on this diagonal. So that's why after g takes h3, now finally knight to d2 has been played by Minik. You see how Minik tried finally to solve these problems on the b file because of this rook's activity, but Stockfish continues now with the g file attack, rook to g8, with the idea of course to clear the g file and put more pressure against the bishop, because there is always this tactic, rook takes g3, f takes g3 is not possible because of the bishop's activity against the king. We have queen to f3. Now Minik is getting a new defender into the game, knight to e7 by the fish, controlling the f5 square, d4, and now knight to h7 with the preparation to get the knight on g5. We have now queen to d3, knight to g5 anyway, and now Minik, I think, makes the first really important mistake in the game. Minik plays now the move d takes e5. But whatever you do, for instance, even if you try, I don't know, knight to f3 to get a new defender into the game, then look at this, after h takes g2, takes, maybe this was an option here for white to go into this line. But again, I think rook to h8, look, is coming. You have to play something like king to g2 to compete on the g file. Again, I think black has enough material. We can fix the structure after something like queen takes 6 check, queen takes f3, f6, and again, you have a solid position. You have occupied the only open files, the h file, also the b file. So I think this is solid play here for black. So even this idea, I don't know, knight to f3 is not working, but Minik played even the worst continuation here. Play now d takes e5. Stockfish continues now with the brilliant h takes g2. The problem is now you cannot play here king takes g2 because you get this one, queen to h3, and then you're simply getting destroyed on the g file. Look at this. There is always, as I said, this tactic. So far it's not possible, but with king to h7, we simply clear the g file, and there's simply too much pressure here to handle for white. Very amazing position. After h takes g2, that's why knight to f5 by Minik. We have king to h7, king takes g2 finally by white, and now rook to b2, including now the heavy artillery into the game. Now the rook is very dangerous. And what should you do? Look what happens if you play, for instance, e takes d6. This wasn't played in the game, but I wanted to show you how dynamic this attack is by the Stockfish engine. Look at this. All of the pieces actually by black are really in good attacking formation. This rook very active. The queen can be included. For instance, if you continue with e takes d6, then you get this one, knight to f5. After e takes f5, queen to c6. You have to now cover this diagonal, and now bishop takes f2. This is now the tactical shot that's actually winning the game here for black. You're trying something like bishop to f2, but now look at this. Knight to e4 is, of course, opening up now the g file, and now we get simply this one. After a couple more moves, you can get even checkmate. Look at this. With in one possible line, you're getting destroyed by the rook and queen's activity. So this would be the stunner. As I said, knight to e4, and then bishop takes f2. You cannot take it with the knight. If you take, as I said, with the bishop, then you're getting destroyed on the g file. So see, e takes d6 is not working here because after knight to f5, this diagonal will be cleared, and then you have several tactical problems to the defending king. So that's why after rook to b2, king to f1, Minik is getting out of this potential check, out of this potential light square mess. Stockfish continues with knight to f5 anyway, e takes f5, and now with queen to c6. There is now a certain problem, even in some lines. For instance, if you move the knight somewhere, there is a check, and you couldn't escape maybe to the second rank. There is even in some lines an immediate checkmate threat here by black. So after queen to c6, we have now f6, the check by Minik. Stockfish retreats to h8, and now knight to e4. We have d takes e5. What should you do? If you play here, as I said, knight to g5, then there is this problem, queen to h1, checkmate. You cannot, of course, escape because the rook is covering the second rank. So after d takes e5, that's why a rook to c2, knight takes e4, rook takes e4. If you try here, rook to b2, this is not good. Seems tempting to pick up the piece, but then you get this one. Look at this. Crazy stuff. Knight to c3, and again the checkmate threat. If you try king to g1, then e4 is coming. Look at this. You have to step back with the queen, and again this tactic, rook takes g3, you cannot take because of the bishop's activity. After here to move e4, you don't have good squares here for the queen. Maybe you can sack the queen for a knight, but obviously game over. So you see here in this position, after knight to e4 that Stockfish played, you cannot take the rook on b2. Really amazing tactics that Stockfish is doing here. So that's why after knight to e4, rook to e4, we have rook to b1, the check, king to g2, rook to g4, pinning the rook here further, putting more pressure against the rook. We have now rook to e2. Here Minik is trying somehow to defend this position, to defend the rook, but also attacks now the rook on b1, and now Stockfish plays an amazing tactic, bishop takes f2 again. Really wild stuff. If you play here rook to f2, then obviously rook to e4, queen to e4, rook takes e4, wins the exchange here for black, and I think this is game over here for white. So that's why after bishop to f2, Minik took now the rook, an amazing rook sacrifice by Stockfish, but now bishop to g3. Again, you cannot take because of the activity by the queen against the rook. So that's why queen to b8, new check, doesn't matter, nothing spectacular gained here for Minik. After king to h7, queen to b1, Minik is trying in some lines also to play a discovered attack against the king, but now Stockfish continues with an amazing h5, fixes simply the rook, and has now, I think, completely winning endgame here. For instance, what should you do? If you try here to escape to f1, then there is this problem. We simply play king to h6. If you take here the rook on g4, then there is even this checkmate threat with queen to h1. This square is covered by the bishop, so you can really never take out the rook on g4. Even if you escape here to h3, if you want to get finally out of this pin, then it's not working, because we simply play rook to g6, covering, of course, because of this dangerous checks by the queen against the king here. So you can maybe try queen to d3, but now bishop to f4, you're trying to escape. Now the queen is coming in. I think again, simple destruction, rook to g4, rook to g4, queen to g4, simply game over here for white. So you see, after h5, the problem here for white is that you cannot escape to the squares, to the slice squares, because the queen's activity is simply too much to handle here. So that's why queen to d3. Minik brings now the queen into the game. Stockfish continues with king to h6. Queen takes g3, Stockfish get challenged in this way, but now another beautiful move, king to g5, is not allowing here anything to happen. Here Stockfish simply keeps it calm, says, I will take the queen whenever I want to take the queen. This rook is pinned, you cannot take it. So amazing stuff here by Stockfish. We have queen to g4, we have h takes g4, king to g3, and now simple king to f6. Even if you try here king to e5, then we simply play something like this. We can trade off even the queen for 2 rooks, and this is now completely winning endgame here for black. So let's go back. After king to h6, after this sequence, we have seen h takes g5, the king comes closer, king to f6, c4 here was played by Minik, and now queen to d6. Again, even if it, I don't know, play something like this, again, we'll simply trade it off. And again, black has a completely winning endgame. We have rook to f2, king drops back to e6, rook to g4, new check by Stockfish, simply goes behind here, and after rook to f2 and f5, in this particular position, the Minik chess engine resigned. So this is simply too much to handle. These pawns are marching, you can deliver check, we go here, you cannot take, then this rook is lost. So whatever you do, these pawns are unstoppable with the support of the queen. You can, of course, prolong the game for a little bit, but in top engine level, this is simply game over for white for sure. So amazing stuff in the Anderssen variation of the Ruy Lopez. I really enjoyed this wild tactics that only sometimes Stockfish can calculate, but because we don't see so many great games like this, because this is epic how the fish is including all of the pieces in the attack, how it spreads the tactics all over the board. Somehow the rook, I don't know, on the g file is somehow connected to the rook on the b file, and then they're simply getting connected in this wild tactical sequences. So this is epic, this is crazy, really, I think, and also a cool game in your preparation in the Ruy Lopez theory, especially, as I said, with the black pieces, because with the black pieces, we should always search for new ideas. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Morphy Defense, the Anderssen Variation. If you want to see some other AI chess games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.